Vulnerability is often misunderstood. In our fast-paced, results-driven world, it's frequently seen as a weakness, something to be avoided at all costs. Yet, vulnerability is anything but weak. It's one of the most powerful forces that shape our relationships, decisions, and personal growth. When someone realizes you've lost interest, their reaction often reveals a profound moment of vulnerability. This is because vulnerability is the raw, unfiltered truth of our emotions. It's the feeling of standing in the open, fully exposed, without the comfort of a shield to protect us. Losing interest in someone disrupts the familiar patterns of connection, and this disruption forces both parties to confront emotions that are often left unspoken: fear, rejection, inadequacy, or even regret. Think about how vulnerability shows up in moments like these. For the person who feels your disinterest, it's as though the ground beneath them has shifted. They might panic, try to regain control, or even lash out in desperation. What they're truly experiencing is the discomfort of exposure, the fear they are no longer enough to hold your attention. Vulnerability lays bare these insecurities, forcing them to face their deepest fears. But here's the paradox of vulnerability. While it can feel like the most painful thing in the world, it is also the birthplace of the things we crave most deeply. Vulnerability is where courage is born. It's where connection grows. It's where authenticity takes root. It is the bridge between who we are and who we want to become. For you, the one who has lost interest, there's vulnerability too. Admitting to yourself and to someone else that you no longer feel the same way requires courage. It can feel uncomfortable to assert your boundaries, especially when you know it might hurt someone else. Yet, allowing yourself to be honest about your feelings, even when it's hard, is one of the greatest acts of self-respect and emotional maturity. Vulnerability, then, is not just about being exposed, it's about what we do with that exposure. It's about leaning into the discomfort, understanding that it is through these moments of openness and honesty that we grow. For the person who becomes desperate when you lose interest, this might mean recognizing their own patterns of fear and dependency. For you, it might mean embracing the discomfort of speaking your truth and letting go of the need to manage someone else's emotions. Connection is one of the most fundamental human needs. From the moment we are born, we seek out bonds with others, family, friends, romantic partners, and even colleagues. These connections provide us with a sense of belonging, security, and purpose. They remind us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. However, as essential as connection is to the human experience, there is an equally important and often overlooked counterpart: the power of detachment. When we talk about connection, we're talking about the invisible threads that tie us to others. These threads are formed through shared experiences, mutual trust, and emotional investment. They can be comforting and fulfilling, giving us the strength to face life's challenges. But what happens when a connection starts to feel one-sided? What happens when you find yourself losing interest and the other person is still holding on? This is where the concept of detachment becomes crucial. Detachment is not about being cold or uncaring. It's about recognizing when a connection is no longer serving you or aligning with your values. It's about honoring your needs even when doing so creates discomfort for others. Detachment allows you to step back from a situation without guilt or resentment, creating the space needed for both parties to reflect and grow. For someone who feels your detachment, the experience can be unsettling. Connection is often tied to identity. People see themselves through the eyes of those they care about. When they sense that your interest is fading, it can feel like a part of their identity is slipping away. This is why their reaction might be desperation as they scramble to reestablish the bond. But here's the truth: clinging to a connection that isn't mutual does not strengthen it, it weakens it. Authentic connection thrives on reciprocity, not on fear or control. Detachment, on the other hand, is an act of self-respect. It's about acknowledging that it's okay for connections to change or end. Not every bond is meant to last forever, and that's a natural part of life. Holding on out of obligation or guilt only leads to resentment and stunts personal growth. When you practice detachment, you give yourself the freedom to pursue connections that are truly meaningful and aligned with your values. Detachment also creates an opportunity for the other person to reflect. When they're no longer relying on you to fulfill their emotional needs, they are forced to look inward. This can be a painful but transformative process. It encourages self-awareness and growth, allowing them to address their insecurities and develop a stronger sense of self. Connection and detachment are two sides of the same coin. One allows us to build relationships while the other helps us navigate their evolution. Together, they teach us the delicate balance between holding on and letting go. Connection without detachment can lead to codependency, while detachment without connection can result in isolation. The key is to find harmony between the two, embracing the beauty of human relationships while remaining true to yourself. Boundaries are often misunderstood. They are frequently seen as walls or barriers that separate us from others, creating distance and disconnect. However, in reality, boundaries are essential for maintaining healthy relationships, fostering personal growth, and protecting our well-being. They are not about shutting people out, but about creating space for ourselves within our interactions with others. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define what is acceptable and what is not, what we are willing to tolerate and what we are not. They shape how we show up in the world and how we allow others to show up in our lives. When we think about the role of boundaries, it's important to understand that they are not static, they are dynamic and fluid. They evolve based on our experiences, values, and the relationships we cultivate. Healthy boundaries are essential for self-care, emotional stability, and for ensuring that we maintain a sense of control over our lives, particularly in moments of discomfort or when we sense a disconnect from someone we care about. In the context of losing interest in someone, boundaries become even more crucial. As you recognize that your feelings have changed, establishing clear boundaries is an act of self-respect. It is the recognition that your emotional and mental energy is valuable, and it is your right to protect it. Boundaries serve as a guiding principle that allows you to engage with others without losing yourself in the process. When you have clear boundaries, you are not only able to navigate your feelings with greater clarity, but you also communicate your needs in a way that is both assertive and compassionate. For the person who is on the receiving end of your detachment or loss of interest, boundaries can be a point of contention. They might feel confused, hurt, or even angry. After all, they may have been accustomed to a certain level of emotional availability or engagement from you, and when that dynamic shifts, they may struggle to understand why. This is where your boundaries become even more important. While it might feel uncomfortable to assert your limits, doing so is an opportunity to teach others how to treat you. It is an invitation for them to respect your space and your emotional needs. It is not about being unkind or punitive. It is about making it clear that your feelings and personal limits matter. Boundaries also play a crucial role in protecting your emotional health. When you fail to set boundaries, you risk losing yourself in a relationship, allowing someone else's needs, desires, and expectations to overshadow your own. This can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, and burnout. By establishing clear boundaries, you send a message to yourself and to others that your well-being is a priority. This doesn't mean that you are selfish. It means that you recognize the importance of self-preservation and emotional balance. You cannot give from an empty cup, and when you fail to set boundaries, you are at risk of depleting your emotional resources. At the same time, boundaries help others to grow and reflect. When you set boundaries, you are not only taking care of yourself, but you are also providing the other person with the opportunity to assess their own actions and behaviors. Boundaries give them space to reflect on their own needs, emotions, and the ways in which they may be relying on you for validation or approval. In some cases, they may be forced to confront their own insecurities or fears, prompting growth and self-awareness. It is in this space of detachment and boundary setting that deeper understanding and healthier dynamics can emerge. It's also important to note that boundaries are not always easy to set. Many people struggle with this because they fear confrontation, rejection, or the potential of hurting someone they care about. However, the truth is that failing to set boundaries often leads to far more harm in the long run. When you allow someone to overstep your limits repeatedly, it erodes the trust, respect, and emotional health in the relationship. By contrast, when you set boundaries early and clearly, you are creating the foundation for a healthier, more respectful connection. Boundaries are also essential in preserving your independence. When we form deep connections with others, it is easy to lose sight of ourselves and become enmeshed in someone else's emotional world. Boundaries act as a safeguard, reminding us that it is possible to be close to someone while still maintaining a sense of individuality and personal space. They create the conditions for a relationship to flourish while allowing both people to thrive as individuals. Desperation is one of the most powerful emotions a person can experience. It is raw, intense, and often consuming. When someone becomes desperate, it is typically a sign that they are facing an overwhelming sense of loss, uncertainty, or fear. In the context of relationships, desperation often emerges when someone senses that they are losing emotional connection or when their sense of security is threatened. This desperation can manifest in many forms: clinginess, emotional pleas, guilt trips, or even manipulative behaviors designed to reestablish control over a situation. However, beneath the surface of desperation lies something far more revealing. It is a mirror to the person's inner world, reflecting their deepest fears, insecurities, and unmet emotional needs. When someone becomes desperate after you lose interest, it is important to remember that their reaction is less about you and more about them. Desperation is not a reflection of your worth or value, but a signal of their emotional struggle. It highlights the fragility of their sense of self and their inability to cope with the possibility of emotional abandonment. It is often born out of the belief that their happiness or sense of stability is tied to your presence or approval. The desperation they display is, in essence, an external expression of an internal void, a deep well of fear and insecurity that they have not yet addressed. Desperation can be a mirror in two ways. First, it reflects the person's emotional state. And second, it reflects the nature of their relationship with you. When you step back, whether consciously or unconsciously, they are forced to confront a part of themselves they may have been avoiding. Their desperation is a desperate grasp at maintaining control, but it's also a desperate attempt to avoid facing their own vulnerabilities. They may not recognize it, but their behavior reveals the emotional wounds they have not healed and the dependency they have placed on external sources of validation. This mirror-like quality of desperation also reveals the fragile nature of dependence. When someone becomes desperate, it often shows that they have invested too much of their emotional well-being in another person. Their happiness, security, and sense of self-worth are inextricably linked to how others perceive them. They may not have developed the internal resources needed to feel whole and secure on their own. This dependency is not just a reflection of their attachment to you. It's a reflection of their inability to meet their own emotional needs. The desperation they feel is a result of a lack of self-sufficiency, and when you begin to detach, it forces them to confront that gap. It's also important to recognize that desperation, though it might feel overwhelming or even manipulative, is not a permanent state. Just as a mirror reflects what is in front of it, desperation reveals only a temporary state of mind. While the reaction might seem intense or out of proportion, it is not an indication of permanent dysfunction. Instead, it is a moment of emotional crisis that in some cases can be transformative. The desperation may be a wake-up call for them to reevaluate their emotional dependencies, to address their insecurities, and to develop healthier ways of coping with fear and loss. For you, the person who is experiencing the other's desperation, this moment also offers an opportunity for self-reflection. It challenges you to examine your role in the dynamic. Did you contribute to their dependence on you? Did you allow them to place emotional burdens on you that were not yours to carry? Desperation can act as a mirror for you as well, reflecting how much you might have overextended yourself in trying to meet someone else's emotional needs. It forces you to question whether you have maintained healthy boundaries or allowed someone else to rely too heavily on your presence for their sense of well-being. Desperation also serves as a reminder that no one is immune to vulnerability. Just as the person desperate for your attention is being forced to confront their own emotional fragility, so too must you confront the way you may have allowed someone to become too reliant on you. It is easy to fall into patterns of enabling or caretaking, especially if we have been conditioned to believe that our value comes from being needed. Desperation in this sense can act as a mirror for you to recognize any patterns of codependency or emotional entanglement that may have developed. It gives you the space to ask yourself if you've truly been acting in your best interest, or if you've been sacrificing your emotional health to maintain the relationship. While the desperation itself may feel overwhelming, it is important to acknowledge that it is not your responsibility to fix or alleviate someone else's emotional turmoil. Their desperation is an opportunity for them to look inward and recognize their own limitations and needs. It is not your job to be their emotional savior or to manage their feelings. Instead, you are invited to maintain your boundaries, honor your feelings, and trust that their emotional crisis is theirs to navigate, not yours to solve. Ultimately, desperation reveals the underlying fears, insecurities, and unresolved emotional needs of the person in distress. It reflects their internal world, giving them an opportunity to confront their issues and seek growth. For you, the person who has detached or lost interest, this moment can be a reminder that your own emotional health and boundaries must come first. Desperation may be a painful temporary reaction, but it is also a profound reflection of the ways in which we all struggle with vulnerability, fear, and the need for connection. Recognizing it as a mirror allows you to respond with empathy, but also with clarity, understanding that while their desperation is real, it is not yours to carry. Authenticity is one of the most powerful and transformative forces in life. In a world where it is often easier to conform, hide our true selves, or wear masks to fit in, authenticity stands as a beacon of truth, courage, and inner strength. It's the act of showing up as who we truly are, not as who we think we should be or what others expect of us. It is about embracing our unique qualities, owning our imperfections, and stepping into our truth with confidence. Authenticity is not just a personal virtue, it is a foundation for creating meaningful connections, fostering personal growth, and living a life that is aligned with our deepest values. The strength of authenticity lies in its ability to cut through the noise and distractions of societal expectations. Every day, we are bombarded with messages about who we should be, how we should act, what we should look like, and how we should behave. These messages often lead to confusion, self-doubt, and the temptation to conform to external pressures. But when we choose authenticity, we choose to reject the fear of judgment and embrace the freedom that comes with being true to ourselves. Authenticity is not about perfection. It's about being real, showing up with all of our strengths, flaws, and complexities. In relationships, the strength of authenticity cannot be overstated. It is through being authentic that we form the deepest, most meaningful connections. When we are true to ourselves, we invite others to do the same. Authenticity builds trust because it allows others to see us as we truly are, without pretense or facade. It fosters openness, vulnerability, and real communication. When we are authentic, we stop pretending to be someone we're not, and this authenticity becomes a magnet for genuine relationships that are built on mutual respect, understanding, and emotional honesty. However, being authentic is not always easy. It requires courage, especially when we fear rejection, criticism, or misunderstanding. In a society that often rewards conformity, stepping into our authenticity can feel like an act of rebellion. It requires us to let go of the need to please others, to seek external validation, or to chase after approval. The reality is that not everyone will appreciate or understand our authenticity, and that's okay. Authenticity is not about gaining the approval of others, it's about gaining the approval of ourselves. It is about living in alignment with our core values and expressing who we truly are, regardless of whether others accept or embrace us. In the context of relationships where disinterest and detachment occur, authenticity becomes an especially powerful tool. When you lose interest in someone, it can be tempting to sugarcoat the truth or pretend that everything is fine to avoid conflict or hurting their feelings. But authenticity demands that we be honest about our emotions, even when the truth is uncomfortable. By being authentic, you are not only being true to yourself, but you are also giving the other person the opportunity to understand your feelings and to confront the reality of the situation. While the other person might experience discomfort or disappointment, the strength of your authenticity in this moment creates the foundation for clarity, understanding, and personal growth. When you practice authenticity in these situations, you are also setting a powerful example for others to do the same. People are drawn to those who are authentic because it provides a sense of safety and reassurance. When you are true to yourself, you give others permission to be true to themselves as well. In relationships where authenticity is present, there is no need for pretense or manipulation. Instead, there is room for honest conversations, mutual respect, and deep emotional connection. Even in moments of disinterest or detachment, authenticity can serve as a bridge for understanding and growth. Moreover, authenticity has a profound impact on our own emotional well-being. When we choose to live authentically, we let go of the exhausting effort to maintain a facade. We stop pretending to be someone we're not and instead embrace our true selves. This internal alignment creates peace of mind, self-acceptance, and emotional resilience. It allows us to respond to life's challenges from a place of inner strength, because we are no longer divided by conflicting desires to meet external expectations and our true needs. The strength of authenticity is also deeply tied to personal growth. When we embrace authenticity, we are constantly learning more about ourselves. We begin to shed the layers of conditioning, fear, and doubt that have been placed upon us by society, family, and peers. We start to recognize what truly matters to us, what aligns with our values, and what brings us joy and fulfillment. Authenticity opens the door to self-discovery and self-expression, giving us the freedom to explore, evolve, and grow into the people we are meant to be. In relationships, this growth is reflected in how we relate to others. Authenticity allows us to connect with others on a deeper level, not based on superficial characteristics or shared interests, but on the truth of who we are. It allows us to offer our most honest and vulnerable selves, to engage in relationships that honor our individuality while also creating space for mutual